Today on The Homely House, we cover the life of Thranduil in the Second Age. The exact date of Thranduil's birth is unknown. He might have been born either during the First Age or in the beginning of the Second. Thranduil is descended from the Sindar, the Grey Elves of Middle-earth, the elves who during the Great Journey never reached Valinor and remained in Beleriand. He is the son of Oropher, who is one of the Athrim, the elves of the kingdom of Doriath living under King Thingol Greycloak and Queen Melian the Maya. Under the tutelage and guidance of these powerful beings, the Athrim become the highest and the noblest of the Grey Elven kindred. Thranduil's name is most probably Sindarin, meaning vigorous spring. Despite being one of the Sindar, among whom the dark and silver hair is more common, in The Hobbit the hair of Thranduil is described as golden. As the First Age comes to an end and Morgoth is overthrown, many elves travel eastward to Lindon, under the kingship of Gil-galad. Centuries before Sauron, the Second Dark Lord, begins the construction of his mighty tower, Barad-dûr, in the year 1000 of the Second Age, Thranduil and his father Oropher depart from Lindon with a handful of Sindar and migrate eastward, seeking to build realms of their own in the forest beyond the Misty Mountains. In the beginning of this age, many of the High Elves still remained. Most of these dwelt in Lindon west of the Ered Luin, but before the building of the Barad-dûr, many of the Sindar passed eastward, and some established realms in the forest far away where their people were mostly Silvan elves. This they did deliberately, for they came from Doriath after its ruin, and had no desire to leave Middle-earth nor to be merged with the other Sindar of Beleriand. Dominated by the Noldorin exiles for whom the folk of Doriath had no great love, they wished indeed to become Silvan folk and to return, as they said, to the simple life, natural to the elves before the invitation of the Valar had disturbed it. In 750 of the Second Age, Oropher establishes the Woodland Realm about Amon Lang, the hill that Sauron will later transform into Dol Guldur in Greenwood the Great east of the Anduin River, and he becomes a king of the Silvan elves who dwell there, making Thranduil his heir. Under the leadership of the Sindar, the Silvan elves become again an ordered folk and increase in wisdom. The newly established realm of Thranduil's father neighbors the kingdom of the elves of Lorien, then under the Sindarin elf Famdir, and the dwarf kingdom of Khazad-dûm, later known as Moria. By this time, the power of the dwarves of this realm has increased, and Moria has grown to be the greatest of the mansions of the dwarves recorded in history. Meanwhile, Galadriel and Celeborn have come into contact with the Nandorin elves of Lorien, and rumors of the rising power of Sauron in the south reach the ears of Oropher. For these reasons, long before the end of the Second Age, Thranduil and his father move northward, abandoning their first dwelling. 3 times Oropher withdraws to the north, the first being beyond the Gladden Fields. Initially, the movement of the elves of the Greenwood is slow, and for a long time they remain in contact with their kin west of the river in Lorien, and there is constant intercourse between the elves of the two realms. As the years pass and the end of the Second Age approaches, Thranduil and his father have moved as far as the mountains of Mirkwood. 3 times he had moved northwards, and at the end of the Second Age he dwelt in the western glens of the Emun-Duir, and his numerous people lived and roamed in the woods and vales westward as far as Anduin, north of the ancient dwarf road Menin-Naugrim. In 3430 of the Second Age, the last alliance of elves and men is formed, an alliance under Gil-galad and Elendil with the purpose of preventing the conquest of Sauron. 4 years later, in 3434, the host crosses the Misty Mountains over many passes and marches down the Anduin. There they are joined by the elves of the Greenwood under King Oropher and his son Thranduil. Despite the desire of the Silvan elves to meddle as little as might be in the affairs of the Noldor and Sindar, or of any other peoples, dwarves, men or orcs, Oropher had the wisdom to foresee that peace would not return unless Sauron was overcome. He therefore assembled a great army of his now numerous people, and joining with the lesser army of Malgalad of Lorien, he led the host of the Silvan Elves to battle. The host reaches Dagorlad and there begins the first assault upon Mordor. The Silvan Elves were hardy and valiant, but ill-equipped with armor or weapons in comparison with the Eldar of the West. Also, they were independent and not disposed to place themselves under the supreme command of Gil-galad. Their losses were thus more grievous than they need have been, even in that terrible war. Before High King Gil-galad gives the signal to advance, Oropher rushes forward at the head of his most doughty warriors of Silvan Elves, and there upon the gates of Mordor he is slain. After the death of his father, Thranduil assumes the leadership of their army. 7 years the siege of Barad-dûr lasts, until at last in 3441 Sauron is overthrown. Thranduil survives this devastating war, and after the battle he leads a remnant of his army of the Silvan Elves back to the Woodland Realm. Thranduil, his son, survived, but when the war ended and Sauron was slain as it seemed, he led back home barely a third of the army that had marched to war. Nonetheless, although Thranduil's army is diminished by the war, it is still mighty, for before the War of the Last Alliance, Sauron had sent out orc troops to the north to attack any company of elves or men that might pass. And as Thranduil and his folk are on their way back, the orcs dare not assault his war-scarred army, his forces being far too strong for them. Eventually the elves return to their home deep in the forest. Thranduil becomes the second king of the Woodland Realm, and rules the Silvan Elves of Greenwood after the death of his father well into the Third Age. When he retreated from the war in the first year of the Third Age, he heard ill news. The orcs of the north regions of the Misty Mountains had also multiplied and spread southwards, and many had crossed the Anduin and were infesting the eaves of Greenwood. In spite of this, a long peace follows in which the numbers of the Silvan Elves of Thranduil's kingdom grow again, but they still remain unquiet and anxious, feeling ever the change of the world that the Third Age will bring. For over 1,000 years into the Third Age, unknowingly to Thranduil, Sauron, under the disguise of the Necromancer, returns to Greenwood the Great from the east, and a shadow falls upon the forest, forcing the Elf King to retreat ever more northward. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one on the Homely House. Namarie.